Good morning, and how you doing, Tom?
I'm doing quite well, and yeah, I mean it's an interesting perspective that he had. That there is some depth and all, but it is a few positions, D tackle in particular, but also cornerback. Even though they're talking about they have great depth, I want to see how these guys handle the man coverage, but. That'll play out on the field on Saturdays. But yeah. I just think there's so many tough games. Road game at BYU, the annual gamut of SEC road games. It's just we saw a very good edition of the Razorbacks last year, and they competed in basically every game other than Georgia, but they still had a clunker against Auburn. I mean, it's just hard week after week to get up to that level that Bama has already established. And so I do believe there's a little bit of a wave of depth between the Bamas and the Arkansas right now.
I mean, you just look first at the offensive line. There are 5 guys that, as Coach likes to say, have played a lot of ball. 4 returning starters, and you add Luke Jones. You got juniors and seniors up front. You look after that, and you got 3 true freshmen that are listed as number 2s that, as he would say, haven't played a lot of ball. And, so there is depth, there is numbers in places, but experienced quality depth is, I think, a different conversation. Would you agree?
Different conversation. And, yeah, I think Tykeus Crawford is lineman number 6. Mm-hmm. But then, he said yesterday, the next group, I like Chambly and Harris and Kudus, and he said that's kind of the next wave. So those are, freshmen, and I know they're going to get better, and they're bigger dudes and athletic, skillful O-linemen. But to think that they'd be ready to go wage it in the SEC West right now is asking a lot of them.
Tom, I thought you asked the best question at the press conference yesterday, the one we played at the top of our open. And you can tell there's a sense of urgency from that team. Playing on ESPN, top 25 matchup. What do you think about the fact that it's been since 1980 that we haven't seen a ranked opener inside of Donald W.?
Yeah, schools generally don't schedule a big-time game right out of the chute. It's becoming a little more of the norm. I know the 2014 Razorbacks opened at Auburn and were tied at halftime, but that team Arkansas wasn't worthy of being ranked, and Auburn was at the time. So it's factors that come into play. How good are the Razorbacks, and then what does their schedule look like? And I think the USC year back in 5 or 6. USC very highly regarded, and the Razorbacks weren't to that level yet. So I think it's a great showcase, and there's competing storylines here. One, Cincinnati, if they lose it, it's like, well, you guys are a really good program, but not SEC quality level, because this is not a top tier right now SEC program. And then if Arkansas can't win it, then it's like, well, are they really built to challenge in the SEC West right now? So good competing storylines, one of 3 top 25 matchups on the day. So it's going to be, I think there's some national media coming, and it's going to get a lot of great coverage.
Tom, the biggest feedback that we've gotten from our listeners this morning is, why is Hudson Clark listed as a starter? And that's what Will wanted me to ask you about. That seems to be the biggest pushing point. Why do you think Hudson Clark beat out McLaughlin, Johnson, Kari Johnson, some of the other guys he went up against?
Well, my question to whoever asked you to ask me that is, have they been paying attention throughout camp? Day one, Hudson Clark's been with the one. He's the only cornerback who's been with the ones every day in this camp. Bishop had a hamstring or quad or something that was going on in spring. And so he wasn't himself in the spring. And then, McLaughlin had some kind of nagging thing at the start of camp. And with him, he's a pretty high-strung dude. And it's a guy you just have to keep your eyes on, basically, and monitor so he doesn't do anything wild. But I think, Bishop had a lot of run with the ones. Malik Chavis had some good run with the ones. And maybe McLaughlin winds up being a starter. But if he does, it would be opposite Hudson Clark right now. And he was there in the fastball starts yesterday. But I also think we're going to see a pretty good mix of all those guys I just mentioned, and possibly even Kari Johnson this year.
Yeah. We spoke about this a little bit in our conversations last week. You wrote on some of this over the weekend about Arkansas and will they have a 1,000-yard rusher, and will KJ be able to throw for 3,000 yards this year? Kind of what's your final conclusion as we're on the doorstep of the season? Does anyone at Arkansas achieve 1,000 yards, and can KJ be the arm that leads this team to 3,000 through the air?
Yeah, I think they're going to have somewhat balanced running, because I think Dominic Johnson will come back, and, on that you've got two really good running backs between Rocket Sanders and Dominic Johnson. But also think A.J. Green and Rashad Dubinion are going to get some run this year. And when you add all that together with the fact that KJ is a good runner, it's just hard to manufacture a 1,000-yard season out of that, unless there's an injury or something and Rocket really has to carry the load. So I'm going to say no on the 1,000-yard rusher. I don't know. Maybe it's just my own personal hope that KJ, I guess to minimize the chance for injury, that KJ doesn't run as much this year. But the truth of it is, if that's where the read takes him and he needs to get a run in, he's going to run the ball. I just hope it's not up to 664 yards. Yeah. And when I brought that up to Kendall Briles, he kind of laughed and he said he was cool with winning games, no matter what that took. So, and then on the 3,000-yard front, my projection was a little bit more than the 2676 he threw for, somewhere around 2,800, 2,900, I believe. But I do believe it's within the realm because there's such a diversity of the receiving corps now and guys he can trust. There's a chance he could get up to 3,000 if he has a couple of three really big games.
Yeah. What about the offensive line and keeping KJ clean this year? Will sacks be a problem this year for Jefferson and this offense?
Well, I mean, the problem is if you get up to, close to around 3 a game or something. Last year they were 2 point something per game. KJ was a lot better at getting the ball out or just going ahead and running than Felipe Franks was the year before. So a lot of those sacks in 2020 were, Felipe not releasing the ball sacks. I don't know if they're going to be a problem. It's the timing of when you get them. Like, for instance, the strip sack against Auburn. That was almost like a game-defining type of a play in your own end zone, and it wound up in an automatic Auburn touchdown. Those are the ones you have to avoid. I think there's going to be some sacks allowed. Teams are going to bring stuff, and, in scrimmage, too, Barry Odom and the defense schemed up a lot of pressures, and Sam Pittman said they had a little bit of trouble covering. This is a veteran front. So you're not just going to go clean the whole year, not making it something that, you get 5 in a game or something like that is what you got to avoid.
Let's stay on Barry Odom for a sec. They don't know who's going to start on Saturday. He might have a good idea, but Fickle has not announced it. Does that make it that much more difficult for Coach Odom? Coach Pittman kind of seemed to lean towards that yesterday with some of the guys. What did he say? Sweet tea and liquor? Is that what he referred to?
He's bringing what to the party?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think it's that big of an issue because here's the way Sam Pittman described it. That Cincinnati has an attack, and Desmond Ridder was a strong runner too. And so he thinks they're going to kind of fold into what they've done. I mean, Arkansas might see some tweaks out of it, but if Bryant's in the game, they expect it to be more of a passing style deal, although he can run. And if Prater's in the game, probably more of an emphasis on the run. And, I mean, that's what Cincinnati was capable of doing last year, including plays that break down. And I think that's one of the biggest concerns for the Razorbacks is third down plays that break down. If you continue to allow them to move the chains when you've got people covered and the quarterback evades it and keeps moving the chains, that's the kind of thing you got to limit in this game.
Tom, you mentioned Coach Odom's defense having some success that second practice or scrimmage, whatever it was. They're going up against 5 returning offensive line starters. What kind of different things do you think he's going to mix up to get after whoever they line up at quarterback on Saturday?
Right. Well, we know that Drew Sanders is going to be involved in the pass rush because he's got a history of being a good edge guy, and, he's just a great pass rusher. So we know that's going to happen. To me, one of the keys on this team is whether or not they can generate pressure, whether their ends can beat opposing offensive tackles and get in there and move the quarterback. These guys don't have great sack numbers, but we know they play hard and they're technically sound guys. So Shad Stewart and Zach Williams and, Dorian Gerald, Jordan Dominic, guys like that have got to start producing this year so you don't have to send extra blitzers to get pressure. And if they can do that, they'll have first of all, I think Arkansas is going to have a solid defense. If they can generate pressure from 4 men going, then they'll be all the better for it, because that way you can provide a little more coverage. You can mix your coverages on the back end better.
Yeah. Temperatures forecasted for around 90 degrees on Saturday. No rain as of current in the forecast for game day. Tom, what is your expectation of the atmosphere, and what kind of crowd do you think will generate a home edge for the Razorbacks?
Yeah, I expect it to be something near along the lines of the Texas, maybe not quite as, loud, but I mean, in moments of the game, this is going to be a big time crowd. I don't think they'll rush the field if they win the game like they did against Texas, but Arkansas fans, they know. I mean, the spotlight's on us a little bit this weekend. It's a big game in terms of the growth of our program. If we can win against the team that was in the playoffs last year and is ranked, it just kind of propels you forward into that home opener against South Carolina. So I expect it to be quite electric with, the SEC Nation being here and everything. There's going to be great attention on this game.
Yeah, another year removed from COVID, season opener, 2 ranked opponents, a returning quarterback. I think you would not surprise me is when the attendance numbers announced if it was at least larger from an attendance standpoint than the Texas game last year.
Yeah, I mean, good point, Tommy. I'm sure it's a sellout. I haven't seen any news on this, but if not a sellout now, probably approaching it, and I'm sure there'll be walk-up and great interest. And, 70, what is it now, 76,000?
Yeah, so what do we consider a sellout now? Is it 76? Is it 80? We know that you can fit more than 76 in there. We know that. So I don't know what you consider a true sellout.
To me, a sellout now is 80+.
Yeah, to me, you got to get to 80, and they've never done that other than a Garth Brooks concert. I don't know that they're not going to get to 80 for this, but if you told me there were 77 or 78,000 there, I mean, last year Texas was 76 something, wasn't it? And it was the 10th largest crowd. So if you beat that number, I honestly, that's kind of my expectation, Tom.
I don't see why it wouldn't. I mean, people are high on what this team is and what Sam Pittman has built it into, and you want your team to have an edge against a well-regarded opponent that's ranked. So, yeah, I don't doubt that the atmosphere is going to be huge, and 77,000 plus would be really sweet.
And I would say, if you win game 1, game 2 could be that, but with an 11 a.m. start, South Carolina, even with a Razorback win, may not be as large a crowd just because of game time. So could be 2 great atmospheres and really kind of showcase how that stadium can hold its sound. We still don't have a great feel for what the new north end zone can bring to the party, as Coach Pittman liked to say yesterday. Will it be sweet tea or liquor? I guess maybe you can find out Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I don't know. He's just such an ease to cover because of his homespun quotes are fantastic. And hey, week 3, Bobby Petrino's coming back. There's a chance for 3 really nice crowds in a row to open this season. Yeah,
that's a night game, so that probably beckons a little more interest from some that like to have the full day to prepare for kickoff, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
All right, Tom, good stuff. We'll do it again Thursday and be right on the doorstep. We'll be on the threshold of the season when we chat again.
I love the sound of it. Talk to y'all then.
All right, Tom Murphy, Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, also writes for Whole Hog Sports with us every Tuesday and Thursday here here on the Morning
BetOnline
Rush.
is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports, contests, and events with first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews and news for every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports information, from live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to join today and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50 to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's BELIEVE, BLEAV 50. That's BELIEVE, BLEAV 50. Bet online, where the game starts.